There's a chapter in the Bible that millions have read, yet few have truly seen. Matthew 6 sits quietly in the pages of Scripture, seemingly offering simple teachings about prayer, fasting, and worry. Pastors quote it, children memorize parts of it, scholars study it. But what if everything we thought we knew about this chapter was just the surface? What if buried within these 34 verses lies a code, a divine blueprint that, when unlocked, reveals the answer to humanity's deepest hungers? For centuries, people have searched for the secret to inner peace, true wealth, and authentic power. They've climbed mountains, consulted oracles, built empires, and written countless books. Yet all along, hidden in plain sight within Matthew 6, was something they never noticed. Not a religion, not a ritual, not a set of rules, but a key. A key that opens a door most don't even know exists. What's behind that door? A way of living so radically different, so impossibly freeing, that if the world discovered it, everything would change. The money system, the power structures, the endless striving. Why has this remained concealed? And why now, after 2,000 years, are we finally ready to see what Matthew 6 has been hiding all along? The streets of Jerusalem had become a stage. Every corner, every marketplace, every synagogue entrance served as a backdrop for religious performance. The religious leaders had turned devotion into entertainment, and they were the stars of the show. When it was time to give to the poor, they made sure everyone knew about it. They would literally have trumpets blown in the synagogues and on the streets, announcing their generosity. The sound would echo through the narrow alleyways, and people would stop what they were doing to watch. Coins would clink loudly into collection boxes. Heads would turn, whispers of admiration would spread. Did you see how much he gave? What a righteous man! Surely God will bless him. The same theater played out during prayer time. The most respected religious men would position themselves at busy intersections. They would stand where the most people could see them. Their arms would stretch toward heaven. Their voices would rise loud and clear. They wanted to be seen. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to be praised. This wasn't hidden devotion. This was religion as spectacle, and the crowds loved it. They pointed out the holy men to their children. They measured their own spirituality against these public displays. The message was clear. The louder your religion, the more real it must be. The more people who witness your devotion, the more valuable it becomes. Jesus watched all of this. He saw the trumpets. He heard the prayers. He noticed where people chose to stand and how they positioned their bodies for maximum visibility. And he saw something else too. The quiet widow who gave her small coin without announcement, the humble man who prayed in whispers where no one noticed, the servant who fasted without telling a soul. The contrast couldn't be sharper. One group performed for crowds, the other group worshipped in secret. Then Jesus spoke. And what he said in Matthew chapter 6 verse 1 flipped everything upside down. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others, to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. Wait, no reward? But these were the most religious people in society. They gave money, they prayed, they followed the rules. Surely they would be rewarded. Jesus said no. He didn't just suggest they tone it down a bit. He didn't offer tips on being more humble while still maintaining some public presence. He demolished the entire system. Your righteousness, he said, should be practiced in secret, not reduced, not modified, hidden. This was radical because it attacked the very foundation of how people understood God's approval. For generations, they believed that public devotion proved private devotion. If you wanted people to know you loved God, you showed them. You made it visible. You made it loud. Jesus reversed the equation. He said the public display actually cancels out the spiritual value. It's not that public religion is worth less, it's that it's worth nothing at all in the eyes of God. Think about what this meant for someone listening. Everything they'd been taught about how to earn God's favor suddenly crumbled. The whole social structure of religious status collapsed. The man everyone admired for his loud prayers, Jesus said he's already received all the reward he's going to get, the applause of people. The woman everyone praised for her announced donations. She got what she wanted, human recognition. That's it. Nothing more is coming. This wasn't just a teaching, it was a revolution. Jesus was telling them that God doesn't operate on the same value system as humans. People reward what they can see. God rewards what they cannot see. Jesus laid out a simple equation in Matthew chapter 6, verses 2 through 4. When you give to the needy, he said, don't announce it with trumpets like the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by others. Then he added something crucial. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full. That phrase, in full, is an accounting term. It means the transaction is complete, the books are closed. When a merchant paid his debt in full, he would mark it as finished. No more payments coming, the account is settled. So when someone gives publicly and receives praise, that praise is their payment, complete, final, done. They traded eternal reward for temporary applause, and they can't go back and renegotiate the deal. But then Jesus described a different way. So when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. This is almost comically private. Your left hand doesn't know what your right hand is doing. Jesus was using exaggeration to make a point. Give so secretly that even you barely notice. Don't replay it in your mind. Don't calculate it. Don't keep a mental record of your generosity. Just give and move on. Then comes the promise. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Here's the mathematics. Human praise plus divine reward is impossible. You get one or the other, never both. The person who seeks human approval receives it and nothing else. The person who seeks God's approval in secret receives it fully. God sees what humans miss. He's watching the secret acts. He's recording the hidden generosity. He's taking note of what you do when no one else is looking. And he rewards it. The question isn't whether you'll be rewarded. The question is which reward you want. The fading applause of people or the eternal acknowledgement of God. You cannot have both. Choose one and you forfeit the other. The math is simple, but the choice is hard. Jesus moved from giving to praying. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 5, he said, "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full." There it is again. That same phrase, reward in full, account closed, the public prayers that everyone admired, worth nothing in heaven, the impressive words spoken where crowds could hear, spiritually bankrupt. Then Jesus gave the alternative in verse 6. "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Go into your room, close the door, pray in secret. This instruction shattered another pillar of religious culture. Prayer was supposed to be communal. It was supposed to be witnessed. How else would people know you were devout? How else would the community recognize your spirituality? Jesus said it didn't matter. In fact, he said the opposite. The most powerful prayers are the ones no one hears. The deepest communion with God happens behind closed doors, not on street corners. Think about what this reveals about God's character. He doesn't need an audience to validate the conversation. He doesn't require witnesses to make prayer legitimate. He's perfectly content meeting with you alone, where no one can see, where no one can hear, where there's nothing to prove and no one to impress. The room represents privacy. The closed door represents intentionality. You're removing all possibility of human observation. You're eliminating every trace of performance. What's left is pure communication between you and God. And in that secret place, something happens that cannot happen in public. You stop performing. You stop choosing words for their impressiveness. You stop worrying about how long you pray or how eloquent you sound. You just talk to your Father. That's when He shows up, not because He wasn't there before, but because you're finally present. Not because He favors secret prayers over public ones, but because secret prayers reveal what you really want. Do you want to be seen by God or seen by people? The room with the closed door answers that question, but Jesus wasn't done with prayer. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 7, He addressed another problem. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. The pagans had a different approach to prayer. They believed their gods were distant, distracted, or difficult to persuade. So they talked a lot. They repeated phrases over and over. They piled up words. They thought volume and repetition would get attention. It was like trying to wake someone who's sleeping. You keep calling their name. You say it louder. You say it more times. Eventually they'll wake up and respond, right? Jesus said God doesn't work that way. In verse 8, He explained, "Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." This is a completely different picture of God. He's not asleep, He's not distracted, He's not far away, He's not hard of hearing. He already knows what you need. Before you say a word, He knows. So why pray at all? If He already knows, what's the point? Jesus answered that question not with words, but with what He did next. Prayer isn't about informing God. It's about aligning with Him. It's not about convincing Him to care. It's about expressing trust that He already does. It's not about volume or repetition. It's about relationship. The pagans treated prayer like magic. Say the right words enough times and you'll get results. Jesus revealed prayer as conversation. Speak to a Father who loves you and already knows your heart. This freed prayer from anxiety. You don't have to find perfect words. You don't have to pray for hours. You don't have to worry that God missed what you said or didn't take you seriously. He heard you. He knows you. He's already aware of every need before you mention it. So prayer becomes simple. You're not performing. You're not manipulating. You're not bargaining. You're just talking to someone who's already listening, already caring, already acting on your behalf. The many words aren't necessary. The Father is already present. Jesus turned to the third major religious practice, fasting. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 16, He said, "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full." There's that phrase again. Third time. Same principle. Fasting was serious business. People would stop eating to focus on prayer, to show repentance, or to seek God intensely. It demonstrated devotion. It proved commitment. It showed you cared enough to sacrifice comfort. But the religious leaders had turned it into another performance. They would make their faces look terrible. They wouldn't wash. They wouldn't groom themselves. They would walk around looking miserable, making sure everyone noticed how much they were suffering for God. People would see them and think, "Look how holy He is. Look how dedicated. He's fasting, and He's making sure we all know it." Jesus called them hypocrites. That word originally referred to actors on a stage, people playing a role. They weren't actually seeking God. They were seeking an audience. Then in verses 17 and 18, Jesus gave the opposite instruction. "But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father, who is unseen. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." This is almost funny. When you fast, look like you're not fasting. Wash up, fix your hair, put on a normal face, go about your day as if nothing's different. Let your stomach growl in secret. Let your hunger stay between you and God. The goal isn't to prove you're fasting. The goal is to actually fast, to really seek God without the distraction of human approval. When you're worried about looking holy, you're not focused on being holy. When you're managing your image, you're not managing your heart. Jesus wanted fasting to be real, not performed. He wanted it to be between you and the Father, not you and the crowd. So he told people to hide it completely. Make it invisible. Let it be your secret. And once again, he promised the same result. The Father who sees in secret will reward you. Not might reward you, will reward you. It's guaranteed. God is watching the hidden devotion. God is recording the secret sacrifices. God is paying attention to what you do when no one else can see. After telling people how not to pray, Jesus showed them how to pray. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 9, he said, "This then is how you should pray." Indeed, what follows in verses 9 through 13 is what we call the Lord's Prayer, though it's really the disciples' prayer, the pattern Jesus gave his followers. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Today, this isn't a script to recite word for word, though there's nothing wrong with praying it exactly as written. It's a template, a structure, a guide showing what matters in prayer. Notice what comes first. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Prayer starts with recognizing who God is, Father, holy, set apart. Before you ask for anything, you acknowledge him. Before you present your needs, you honor his character. Then your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. You're asking for his purposes to advance, his plans to succeed, his desires to be fulfilled. You're aligning yourself with his agenda before presenting your own. Only then do personal requests appear. Give us today our daily bread. Notice it's daily bread, not lifetime supply, not wealth, not abundance, just what you need for today. This keeps you dependent on God every single day, not just once. Then comes the difficult part. Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. You're asking God to forgive you the same way you forgive others. This is dangerous. If you hold grudges, you're asking God to hold grudges against you. If you refuse to forgive, you're asking God to refuse to forgive you. Finally, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. You're admitting you need protection. You can't navigate life alone. You need God to guide you away from danger and deliver you from evil. This pattern reveals what matters most in prayer. God's glory comes first, his kingdom comes second, your needs come third. And all of it happens in relationship with a Father who wants to hear from you. No babbling required, no performance necessary, just honest conversation following the pattern Jesus provided. Jesus could have ended there, but he didn't. Right after giving the prayer, he circled back to one specific line. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 14 and 15, he said, "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins." This is the only part of the prayer Jesus chose to emphasize, not God's holiness, not daily bread, not deliverance from evil. Forgiveness. Why? Because forgiveness reveals what you understand about grace. When you refuse to forgive someone, you're saying their sin against you is worse than your sin against God. You're saying they don't deserve mercy while you do. You're claiming you have the right to hold a debt that God himself would cancel. Jesus made the standard clear. God forgives you the same way you forgive others. If you forgive freely, he forgives freely. If you forgive grudgingly, he forgives grudgingly. If you don't forgive at all, neither does he. This isn't about earning salvation through forgiveness. It's about demonstrating that you've actually received forgiveness. Someone who truly understands how much God has forgiven them cannot withhold forgiveness from others. It's impossible. You've been forgiven an unpayable debt. How can you then refuse to forgive the small debts others owe you? The person who won't forgive reveals they don't really understand forgiveness. They're still keeping accounts. They're still measuring who owes what. They're still operating in the economy of debt rather than the economy of grace. Jesus made forgiveness non-negotiable. It's not optional. It's not a nice thing to do if you feel like it. It's required, not as a work that earns God's favor, but as evidence that you've received God's favor. When you pray for forgiveness, you're stepping into a system where debts are cancelled. If you want to receive that cancellation, you must also give it. There's no other way. You cannot hoard grace for yourself while denying it to others. God won't honor that arrangement. The Father forgives those who forgive. He withholds forgiveness from those who withhold it. Jesus shifted the conversation. He had just finished talking about hidden devotion, giving, praying, and fasting in secret. Now he turned to something else that consumed people's hearts: their possessions. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, he said, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal." This was practical advice, wrapped in spiritual truth. Everyone listening knew exactly what he meant. Moths ate through expensive clothing. Fabric was valuable in the ancient world, often representing significant wealth. A single fine garment could cost months of wages, but leave it in storage too long, and moths would destroy it completely. Vermin, literally eating in the Greek, referred to rust corroding metal or decay rotting food supplies. Your stored grain could spoil. Your metal coins could corrode. Even precious metals weren't completely immune to tarnish and deterioration over time. And thieves? They were a constant threat in the ancient world. Homes had mud walls that could be literally dug through. The Greek word for break in actually means dig through. Thieves would wait until night, quietly dig through the wall of a house and steal whatever they found inside. Every earthly treasure faced at least one of these three enemies. Your finest robe could be destroyed by moths. Your stored grain could rot, your silver could corrode, your gold could be stolen. Nothing you accumulated on earth was truly safe. It all had an expiration date. Then in verse 20, Jesus gave the alternative. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Heaven has no moths, no decay, no thieves, no corruption of any kind. Whatever you invest there stays there permanently. It's protected by God Himself. It cannot be taken from you. It cannot deteriorate. It cannot be lost or stolen or destroyed. But how do you store treasure in heaven? Jesus didn't explain the mechanics here in detail, but the answer was embedded in what He'd just taught. You store treasure in heaven by doing exactly what He described: giving in secret, praying behind closed doors, fasting without announcement. When you invest in what God values rather than what people see, you're making deposits in an account that never closes. Then Jesus explained why this matters in verse 21. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This is the key to understanding everything. Your heart follows your treasure, not the other way around. You might think you invest in what you love, but Jesus reversed the equation. You love what you invest in. Put your money in real estate, and your heart will be tied to property values. You'll check prices constantly. Your emotions will rise and fall with housing trends. Put your money in stocks, and your heart will ride the market. You'll watch financial news differently. Your sense of peace will depend on numbers going up or down. Put your treasure in heaven, and your heart will be anchored there. You'll think about eternal things. You'll care about what God cares about. Your values will gradually shift toward His values. You cannot fake this principle. Your bank statement reveals your heart. Your credit card history reveals your heart. Your calendar reveals your heart. Your treasure reveals your heart, and wherever your treasure sits, that's exactly where your thoughts will drift, your emotions will attach, and your energy will focus. Jesus continued with what seems like a strange metaphor in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. This sounds odd to modern ears until you understand ancient thinking about vision. People in Jesus' day believed the eye didn't just passively receive light from outside. It actively emitted light, like a lamp casting illumination. They thought of the eye as something that lit up everything you saw. Jesus used their common understanding to teach a deeper spiritual truth. A healthy eye, literally single or simple in Greek, means an eye that sees clearly, focuses properly, and lets in light without distortion or cloudiness. When your eye works right, your whole body benefits from it. You can navigate safely, you can see danger coming, you can find your way even in dim conditions. Light fills everything and you function properly. But then, in verse 23, Jesus described the opposite condition. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? An unhealthy eye, literally evil in Greek, means an eye that's clouded, distorted, or broken. But in Hebrew culture, having an evil eye was an idiom that went beyond physical blindness. It meant being stingy, greedy, envious, or jealous. When someone had an evil eye, they couldn't see others' blessings without feeling resentment. They couldn't give without calculating their loss. They looked at everything through the distorted lens of accumulation. So Jesus was connecting physical sight to spiritual and financial perception. How you see money and possessions determines whether you walk in light or darkness. If your eye is generous, healthy and single-focused on God, light fills your whole life. You see clearly. You make good decisions. You recognize what actually matters. If your eye is greedy, evil and double-focused on wealth, darkness takes over everything in your life. You can't see clearly anymore. Your judgment gets clouded by financial considerations. Your decisions get twisted by the desire for more. You think you're being wise, but you're actually walking blind. The terrifying part is Jesus' final statement. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? You think you're seeing clearly. You think you're making wise financial decisions. You think you're being smart and responsible about money. But if your perspective is actually twisted by greed, you're walking in complete darkness while fully convinced you're in the light. And that's the absolute worst kind of blindness. When you can't see that you can't see. When you're so lost you don't even realize you're lost. When your internal compass is so broken that you think you're heading in the right direction while actually walking straight off a cliff. Your view of money and possessions determines whether your whole life operates in light or darkness. Get this wrong, and everything else goes wrong with it. Then Jesus made one of his most famous statements. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, he said, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." The word for money here is mammon in Greek. It wasn't just a neutral term for currency or coins. It represented wealth personified, money acting as a master, demanding loyalty, requiring service, claiming devotion. Notice that Jesus didn't say it's difficult to serve two masters. He didn't say you shouldn't try. He didn't say it's unwise or complicated. He said it's impossible. The word cannot is absolute. There's no middle ground, no compromise position. Why is it categorically impossible? Because masters make competing demands on your life. One master tells you to give generously to those in need. The other tells you to hoard carefully for your own security. One master says, "Trust me for your daily provision." The other says, "Accumulate enough wealth so you don't have to trust anyone." One master values eternal investments. The other values immediate returns. You'll inevitably end up loving one master and hating the other. Not necessarily emotional hatred filled with anger, but practical rejection through your daily choices. When their commands conflict, and they will conflict constantly, you'll obey one and ignore the other. You have to. You can't do both. And since masters give commands every single day about how to spend your time, invest your money, and use your energy, you'll be forced to choose every single day which master you're actually serving, regardless of which master you claim to serve. Jesus presented this as a stark binary choice: God or money. Not God and money, not mostly God with a little money on the side. Either God is genuinely your master, and money is merely your tool, or money is actually your master, and God becomes functionally irrelevant. The scary part is that money makes an excellent master if you're looking for one. It promises security, save enough and you'll be safe. It offers control. With wealth, you can manage your circumstances. It provides options. Money opens doors that poverty keeps closed. It never asks uncomfortable questions about your character. It doesn't require you to change. It just demands more of itself, and you're happy to comply because accumulating feels like winning. But money is simultaneously a terrible master. It never satisfies. There's always a higher number to chase. It always wants more. Enough is never enough. It can be lost in an instant. Markets crash, businesses fail, theft happens. It cannot deliver what it promises. Wealth doesn't guarantee security or happiness, and it will take everything from you: your time, your relationships, your peace, your soul, while giving nothing that lasts. Jesus forced the question into the open. Who do you actually serve? Your bank account or your Father? Your portfolio or your God? You're serving one of them right now. Which one is it? After establishing that you cannot serve both God and money, Jesus addressed the natural result of trying to do exactly that. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 25, he said, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes?" That word, therefore, is critical. It connects this command directly to what he just said. Because you cannot serve two masters, therefore do not worry. Worry is what happens when you try to make money your security while claiming God is your master. You end up chronically anxious because you're trying to serve both and succeeding at neither. Jesus specifically targeted the three most basic human needs: food, drink, and clothing. Notice these aren't luxuries. He's not talking about wanting a bigger house or a nicer car. These are genuine essentials. You actually need food to live. You actually need water to survive. You actually need clothes for protection. These are completely legitimate necessities, not greedy wants. But Jesus said, don't worry about them. The Greek word for worry means to be divided in mind, pulled in different directions, anxious and distracted. It's not about being careless or irresponsible. It's about refusing to let anxiety control your thoughts and steal your peace. Then he asked two questions. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? If God gave you life itself, this incredible gift of existence, will he not also provide what that life needs? If he created your body with its trillions of cells, its perfectly coordinated systems, will he not also supply what the body requires? The logic is simple but profound. The greater gift proves, the lesser gifts will come. God already gave you the biggest things, life and a body. These are infinitely more complex and valuable than food and clothing. Creating life is harder than providing food. Designing a body is more difficult than making clothes. If he already provided what's greater, why would he withhold what's lesser? That makes no sense. It would be like someone giving you a car but refusing to give you gas, or giving you a phone but refusing to let you charge it. Yet people worry constantly. They lie awake calculating expenses. They stress about bills. They panic over income. They obsess over their wardrobe. And in doing so, they treat food and clothing as more important than the life and body God already gave them. They flip the equation. They make the lesser thing greater than the greater thing. Jesus was calling them back to reality. You have life. That's the miracle. You have a body. That's the gift. These came from God. The food and clothes needed to sustain them will also come from God. Stop worrying about what He's already committed to provide. Jesus gave His first example from nature in Matthew chapter 6, verse 26. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? This was brilliant teaching. Everyone listening had seen birds that very day. They watched them every day. Birds were everywhere in Palestine, on rooftops, in trees, flying overhead, pecking at the ground. They were common, ordinary, impossible to ignore, and everyone knew how birds lived. They don't plant crops in spring. They don't harvest grain in fall. They don't build storage facilities for winter. They have no agricultural system, no savings account, no retirement plan, no backup supply. Yet they eat. Every single day, birds find food. They survive. They thrive. They sing. They raise their young. How? Because God feeds them, not by directly dropping food into their mouths, but by ensuring the world provides what they need when they need it. Now, Jesus wasn't saying birds are lazy. Birds do work. They search for seeds. They catch insects. They hunt for worms. They're industrious, but they don't worry. They don't stay up at night anxious about tomorrow's meal. They don't panic about next week's provision. They trust that when tomorrow comes, food will be available. And it always is. Then Jesus made the crucial comparison. Are you not much more valuable than they? This is an argument from lesser to greater. If God takes care of birds who cannot think abstractly, cannot plan long-term, cannot pray, how much more will He take care of you? You're made in His image. You're His child. You can communicate with Him. You can know Him personally. You matter infinitely more than birds in God's economy. Birds are fed. You are loved. Birds are provided for. You are cherished. The argument is airtight. If God does this much for that, imagine what He'll do for this. If He provides for creatures of small value, He'll certainly provide for creatures of great value. But here's the challenge. Birds actually trust this system. They wake up and start looking for food without panic. They don't gather more than they need. They don't hoard for decades. They live day by day trusting that provision will come. Humans do the opposite. They panic before there's a problem. They hoard beyond what's needed. They sacrifice today's peace for tomorrow's imagined security. They trust their own planning more than God's provision. Jesus held up birds as teachers. Watch them. Learn from them. They're not smarter than you. They're not more capable, but they're more trusting. And that trust is rewarded every day with food provided by a Father who doesn't forget even the smallest creatures. Jesus then asked a pointed question in Matthew chapter 6, verse 27. Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? The Greek here can mean either adding time to your life or adding height to your body. Either way, the answer is the same. No. Worry accomplishes nothing. Think about what worry actually does. It doesn't change circumstances. It doesn't solve problems. It doesn't prevent disasters. It doesn't extend life. It doesn't make you taller. It has zero productive power. In fact, worry does the opposite. It shortens life. Stress kills. Anxiety damages your body. Constant worry weakens your immune system, raises your blood pressure, disrupts your sleep, and clouds your thinking. If anything, worry takes hours from your life rather than adding them. Yet people worry constantly. They worry about money they don't have. They worry about problems that haven't happened. They worry about situations they cannot control. They replay disasters in their minds that exist only in imagination, and all of it is completely useless. Jesus wasn't being cruel, He was being honest. Worry is impotent. It cannot achieve what you hope it will achieve. You think worry is preparation. You think it's being responsible. You think it's protecting yourself, but it's not. It's just suffering twice. Once in imagination and once in reality, if the feared thing actually happens. The question exposed the foolishness of anxiety. If worry cannot add a single hour to your life, why are you doing it? If it cannot solve any problem, why are you investing so much energy in it? If it's completely powerless, why are you letting it control you? Jesus wanted people to see worry for what it is, a waste. It steals your peace today without improving tomorrow. It robs your joy now without securing your future. It takes everything and gives nothing. It's a terrible investment that never pays returns. So why do it? Why give worry that kind of power? If it can't help, stop letting it hurt. Jesus gave a second example from nature. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 28 and 29, he said, "And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these." Flowers don't work for their beauty. They don't labor in fields. They don't spin thread. They don't weave fabric. They don't design garments. They don't employ tailors. They just grow naturally. And in growing, they become more beautiful than the wealthiest king who ever lived. Solomon was legendary for his wealth. His throne was covered in gold. His palace took 13 years to build. He had the resources of an entire empire. He could afford the finest clothing ever made, purple dyes from rare sea creatures, fine linens from Egypt, elaborate embroidery by master craftsmen. Expert weavers created garments specifically for him. Yet Jesus said a simple wildflower is dressed better, not more expensively, not more elaborately, but more beautifully, because God designed it. God colored each petal. God shaped every detail. And the result surpasses anything human wealth can produce. Then in verse 30, Jesus drove the point home. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Wildflowers in Palestine had a short life. They bloomed briefly during the rainy season, then died quickly when heat came. The dried grass was gathered and used as fuel for ovens. That's what thrown into the fire means, burned as fuel. So these flowers were disposable, temporary, practically worthless in economic terms. They existed for weeks, displayed beauty, then got burned as oven fuel. Yet God clothed them with such spectacular beauty that they surpassed Solomon's royal wardrobe. For their brief existence, they displayed glory exceeding the finest human craftsmanship. Now compare. If God does that for grass, which lives for days, what will he do for you? Grass lives for weeks. You live for decades and eternally. Grass has no eternal value. You're made in God's image. Grass serves as fuel. You'll live forever. Jesus added a rebuke, you of little faith. That's what worry reveals. Not that you don't believe in God's existence, not that you deny his power, but that you don't trust he'll take care of your specific needs. You believe he exists, you believe he's powerful, but you don't believe he'll provide for you. That's little faith, small trust, weak confidence. The flowers prove otherwise. They testify every spring that God provides beauty even for what's disposable. How much more will he provide for you? Jesus had just finished contrasting his followers with the pagans who chased desperately after food, drink, and clothing. Now he established the foundation for everything he was about to say next. The reason believers don't need to worry like pagans do comes down to one simple fact. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 32, Jesus said something that changes everything. Your heavenly Father knows that you need them. This wasn't a casual observation. This was the anchor point for the entire teaching. The pagans run after these things because they have no Father who knows or cares. But you do, and he knows. That word knows carries enormous weight. It's not distant awareness. It's not general knowledge that humans need food. It's personal, intimate, specific knowledge about you. He knows you need food today, not humanity in general, but you specifically. He knows about your rent payment. He knows about your medical bill. He knows about every single need before you even recognize it yourself. Think about what this means practically. Before you wake up worried about how you'll pay for something, God already knows about it. Before you start stressing about where your next meal will come from, God has already seen the need. Before you panic about having appropriate clothes, God has already taken note. Nothing about your situation surprises him. Nothing catches him off guard. Nothing escapes his attention. He's not scrambling to figure out solutions. He's not wondering how he'll provide. He already knows, and he's already working. This is what separates children from orphans. Orphans have to worry because there's genuinely no one looking out for them. Their anxiety is rational. Their panic makes sense. They're truly alone, so they'd better take care of themselves. But you're not an orphan. You have a father, and this father doesn't just exist somewhere far away, vaguely aware that people have needs. He knows your specific needs intimately. He's paying attention to your exact situation right now. This knowledge changes everything that comes next. Every command Jesus is about to give rests on this truth. Your Father knows what you need. Now Jesus gave the most important instruction in the entire chapter. After establishing that your Father knows your needs, he told you exactly what to do with your life. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, he said, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." This is it. This is the answer to anxiety. This is the solution to the problem of serving two masters. This is how you live as a child instead of an orphan. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. That word first is the key. Not seek it eventually. Not seek it when convenient. Not seek it along with everything else. First, before anything else. As your primary pursuit, as your top priority, as the organizing principle of your entire life. This isn't just about prayer in the morning or church on Sunday. This is about what drives your decisions every single day. When you wake up, what are you seeking? When you make plans, what are you prioritizing? When you spend your time, money, and energy, what are you pursuing first? Most people seek security first, or comfort first, or success first, or pleasure first. Then, if there's time and energy left over, they'll seek God's kingdom. Jesus flipped that completely. Seek his kingdom first, and everything else falls into line. Notice he didn't say seek only his kingdom. He said seek it first. There's a difference. You still work, you still provide for your family, you still pay your bills, you still handle responsibilities. But these things are secondary, not primary. They're consequences of seeking God's kingdom, not the main pursuit that consumes you. This command requires a complete reorganization of priorities. It means every decision gets filtered through one question. Does this advance God's kingdom? Every purchase, every job choice, every relationship, every use of time gets evaluated by whether it puts God's kingdom first or pushes it aside. The disciples listening to this must have wondered what it meant practically. How do you seek his kingdom first when you have bills to pay and mouths to feed? Jesus was about to explain. But first, you need to understand what Jesus meant by kingdom. This isn't about a physical place or a political system. The kingdom of God is wherever God's will is done, wherever his authority is recognized, wherever his rule is welcomed. Jesus taught his disciples to pray, "Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." That's what the kingdom is, God's will being done on earth the same way it's done in heaven. In heaven, God's authority is complete and unquestioned. His desires are instantly fulfilled. His character is perfectly reflected. The kingdom is bringing that reality here. So when Jesus said, "Seek first his kingdom," he meant pursue the expansion of God's rule. Make it your primary goal to see God's authority acknowledged in your own heart first, then in your family, your work, your community, and the world. Seeking the kingdom means asking throughout your day, What does God want here? What would honor him in this situation? How can his will be done in this moment? It means making choices that reflect his values rather than the world's values. It means living under his authority instead of your own. This is radically different from how most people live. Most people seek their own kingdom, where their will is done, where their desires are fulfilled, where their comfort is prioritized. They want to be the king of their own life. Jesus said, surrender that throne, seek his kingdom instead. When you seek God's kingdom in your workplace, you work with integrity and excellence, not because it gets you promoted, but because it reflects his character. When you seek his kingdom in your finances, you give generously and trust him for provision, not because it makes financial sense, but because it demonstrates his rule in your life. When you seek his kingdom in relationships, you love sacrificially and forgive completely, not because people deserve it, but because that's how his kingdom operates. The kingdom isn't something distant that only arrives when Jesus returns. It's breaking into the world now, wherever people surrender to God's rule, and you seek it by surrendering more of your life to that rule every single day. Jesus didn't just say, seek his kingdom. He added something equally important. Seek his righteousness. This is different from seeking your own righteousness. Your own righteousness is about performing well enough to earn God's approval. It's about following rules to prove you're good enough. It's about comparing yourself to others and feeling superior. It's exhausting and never quite enough. His righteousness is completely different. It's about alignment with God's character and purposes. It's about wanting what he wants. It's about valuing what he values. It's about seeing what he sees and caring about what he cares about. When you seek his righteousness, you're not trying to earn anything. You're trying to reflect someone. You're pursuing character transformation, not just behavioral modification. You want to become more like him, not just act more religious. This connects directly back to everything Jesus taught at the beginning of the chapter. Seeking his righteousness means giving in secret, because that's what righteous people do. They give for God's glory, not human applause. It means praying in private, because that's where real righteousness is formed, in hidden communion with the Father. It means fasting without fanfare, because true righteousness doesn't need an audience. Seeking his righteousness also means developing the character qualities God values: justice, mercy, humility, faithfulness, generosity, patience. These aren't achieved by trying harder. They're developed by seeking God himself, by spending time in his presence, by letting him reshape your heart. The pagans seek material things first and never find satisfaction. Believers seek God's righteousness first and discover that everything they truly need comes with it. Not because righteousness earns God's provision, but because seeking God's character puts you in position to receive what he's already planning to give. This is the opposite of religious performance. Religious performance says, I'll be righteous so God will bless me. Seeking his righteousness says, I'll pursue knowing God and becoming like him, trusting that he'll provide what I need along the way. After giving the command to seek first God's kingdom and righteousness, Jesus made a remarkable promise. In the second part of Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, he said, "And all these things will be given to you as well." What are all these things? Everything he just told them not to worry about: food, drink, clothing, the basic necessities of life. The things pagans chase desperately, the things that consume people's thoughts and steal their peace. Jesus promised these things will be given to you. Not might be given, not could be given if you're lucky, will be given. It's guaranteed, it's certain, it's a promise from God himself. But notice the word as well. It means in addition or also. These things are added to what you already received by seeking God's kingdom first. They're not the main gift. They're the bonus. They're what comes alongside the greater treasure. Think about the mathematics here. When you seek material things first, you might get material things, but you miss the kingdom. When you seek the kingdom first, you get the kingdom, and the material things are thrown in as extra. One pursuit gets you one thing, the other pursuit gets you everything. This is how God's economy works. It's completely backward from human thinking. Humans say, get your security and provision first, then you can afford to seek spiritual things. God says, seek spiritual things first, and I'll take care of your security and provision. This doesn't mean everyone who seeks God's kingdom gets wealthy. It means everyone who seeks God's kingdom gets what they need. Jesus promised necessities, not luxuries, food, not feasts, clothing, not designer brands, provision, not excess. But here's what's remarkable. When you're truly seeking God's kingdom first, your definition of need changes. You stop needing as much. You're satisfied with less. You find contentment in Him rather than in accumulation. So even though He's not promising wealth, what He does provide feels like abundance because your heart is full. The addition promise only works when you genuinely seek first. You can't fake this. You can't seek material security while claiming to seek God's kingdom and expect this promise to activate. God knows what you're really pursuing. Your heart reveals your true priority. But when you genuinely reorganize your life around God's kingdom and righteousness, when you really do make that your first pursuit, you'll find that provision follows. Not always in the way you expected, not always according to your timeline, but always sufficient, always on time, always exactly what you actually need. Jesus wasn't finished. He had one more critical instruction about how to handle life's challenges. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 34, He said, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." This is practical time management for anxious people. Don't project your anxiety into the future. Don't borrow tomorrow's problems and carry them today. Live in today. Deal with today. Trust God for today. Tomorrow will have its own challenges, that's guaranteed. Jesus didn't promise trouble-free existence. He acknowledged that every day contains difficulties, but tomorrow's troubles come with tomorrow's grace. When tomorrow becomes today, God will give you what you need for that day. The problem is that people try to carry multiple days of trouble at once. They're worried about today's problems, while simultaneously stressing about next week's challenges and next month's potential disasters. They're collapsing all their future anxiety into the present moment, and the weight is crushing. Jesus said, stop doing that. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Today's challenges are sufficient without adding tomorrow's possibilities. Focus your energy on what's actually in front of you right now, not on what might happen later. This connects back to the Lord's Prayer that Jesus taught earlier. He told them to pray, "Give us today our daily bread." Not this year's bread, not next month's bread, today's bread. One day at a time. This keeps you dependent on God every single day instead of trusting in accumulated resources. Living day by day doesn't mean you don't plan. It means you don't worry. You can make reasonable preparations for the future without being anxious about the future. You can save money without trusting in money. You can plan your schedule without stressing about everything that could go wrong. The difference is where your trust actually rests. Are you trusting your planning, or are you trusting God while making plans? Are you anxious about the future, or are you confident that when the future becomes the present, God will be there? This day-by-day principle is actually freeing. You only have to trust God for today. You only have to handle today's challenges. You only need today's strength. Tomorrow isn't here yet. When it arrives, it will bring its own grace, its own provision, its own strength from God. Stop trying to live multiple days at once. You're not built for that. God gives you exactly what you need for one day at a time. That's how He designed this to work. Jesus ended His teaching with remarkable honesty. He said, each day has enough trouble of its own. He didn't sugarcoat reality. He didn't promise that following him means life becomes easy. He acknowledged straight out that every single day contains trouble. The word trouble here means difficulty, hardship, affliction, pressure. It's the normal friction of living in a broken world. Relationships have conflict, bodies get sick, jobs have stress, money gets tight, plans fall apart. That's just life on earth after the fall. Jesus wasn't being pessimistic, he was being realistic. If you're waiting for a day without any trouble, you're going to wait forever. Trouble is part of the package of earthly existence. Some days have more trouble than others, but every day has some. This is actually comforting when you understand it correctly. Jesus isn't surprised by your trouble. He expects it. He predicted it. He built his teaching around the assumption that you'll face daily difficulties. So when trouble comes, you're not experiencing something unusual or unexpected. You're experiencing exactly what Jesus said would happen. The question isn't whether you'll have trouble. The question is whether you'll have tomorrow's trouble today. Jesus said each day has enough trouble of its own, sufficient, adequate, plenty. You don't need to import more from the future. Today's trouble is matched with today's grace. God gives you exactly the strength, wisdom, patience, and provision you need for what you're facing right now. But he doesn't give you tomorrow's grace today. Why would he? Tomorrow isn't here. You don't need grace for something that hasn't happened. When people worry about the future, they're trying to face future trouble with only today's grace. And it doesn't work. You feel overwhelmed because you are overwhelmed. You're trying to carry weight you weren't given strength to carry yet. But when tomorrow comes, if that trouble actually materializes, God's grace will be there to meet it. New mercies, fresh strength, sufficient provision, not a moment too early, but never a moment too late. This is why Jesus kept circling back to the same point throughout this entire chapter. Don't worry. Not because nothing bad will happen, but because when it does happen, God will be there. Your Father knows. Your Father provides. Your Father gives daily bread, daily strength, daily grace. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Face today's trouble with today's grace. Let tomorrow face tomorrow's trouble with tomorrow's grace. That's how this works. Matthew chapter 6 isn't three separate teachings thrown together randomly. It's one unified vision of how to live as God's child in a broken world. Everything connects. Everything builds on what came before. The chapter started with hidden righteousness. Jesus demolished religious performance and called people to authenticity before God alone. Give in secret. Pray in private. Fast without announcement. Let your devotion be between you and your Father, not you and an audience. Then it moved to material anxiety. Jesus addressed money as a rival master and provision as a source of worry. He used birds and flowers to show that God provides for his creation. He contrasted believers with pagans who have no father watching over them. Now it ended with kingdom priorities. Jesus gave the solution to everything he'd discussed. Seek first God's kingdom and righteousness, and everything else gets added to you. Live day by day. Trust God for today. Let tomorrow take care of itself. These three sections create one complete picture. When you practice hidden righteousness, you're training your heart to care about God's opinion more than human approval. When you refuse to worry about material things, you're learning to trust your Father's provision instead of your own accumulation. When you seek God's kingdom first, you're organizing your entire life around what matters most. They all work together. You can't truly seek God's kingdom while craving human applause for your spirituality. You can't practice hidden righteousness while worrying constantly about money. You can't trust God for material provision while making wealth your master. But when you get all three right, something remarkable happens. You become free. Free from the need for human approval, free from anxiety about provision, free from the tyranny of competing priorities. You know what matters most. You know who's taking care of you. You know where your treasure is. and your heart follows your treasure straight to God. This is what Jesus meant when he talked about the kingdom. It's not just a future reality when he returns. It's a present reality for those who live under God's rule now. You can experience kingdom life today by practicing what Jesus taught in this chapter. The person who lives this way looks radically different from everyone else. They give generously without announcing it. They pray consistently without performing. They fast regularly without displaying it. They don't chase money desperately. They don't worry about tomorrow constantly. They trust their Father daily. They seek his kingdom first in every decision. This person has discovered the secret that Matthew 6 has been revealing all along. Life works best when God is actually God. When you let him be your father, your master, your king, your provider, everything else falls into place. Not because life becomes easy, but because you're finally living the way you were designed to live. That's why this chapter matters so much. It's not just good advice. It's the blueprint for human flourishing. It's how life is supposed to work. Hidden righteousness before God, freedom from material anxiety, kingdom priorities first. These three things together create a life that reflects God's character and experiences God's provision. Jesus didn't give these teachings to make life harder. He gave them to make life work. Follow them, and you'll discover what you've been searching for all along: peace with God, freedom from anxiety, and a life that actually matters for eternity. If this message challenged you, convicted you, or changed how you see Matthew 6, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another deep dive into Scripture. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that God knows what they need. That friend buried in anxiety, that family member chasing the wrong things, that person who's forgotten what truly matters. The revolution Jesus started in Matthew 6 doesn't end here. It continues every time someone chooses the hidden over the visible, trust over worry, and God's kingdom over their own. Be part of that revolution. Subscribe, share, and most importantly, live it.